Welcome everybody to the June 27th, 2013 Franklin Municipal Planning Commission meeting. Appreciate everybody being here. We'll start the meeting with our minutes from our May meeting. If I can get a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any items you'd like to speak to the commission directly that are not on tonight's agenda, please come forward and we'll listen to what you've got to say. All right, I see no movement, so we'll move on to announcements. Kathy?
I have no announcements this evening.
All right, we're making plans here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
This doesn't necessarily mean announcements, but I don't know anyplace else. Will it be possible for the next month or two for us to get a list of the projects that have been given extensions, you know, whose approvals have been given extensions by the Planning Commission and or staff? Because we saw something with an extension here. But still, I think it would be good to kind of just find out about the status of those. You know, over the last few years, we've had a number of them.
So basically all the valid projects that have been given an extension?
Yeah, the ones that already have approval. You know, I guess this would really be site plan approval. I can't think of anything else that would have run out, would it? So it would be site plan approval where they have been given extensions of that beyond the 1 year. That would be helpful to us, I think, at this point.
Great. All right, then, again, to the ladies and gentlemen in the audience, are there any items that are not on tonight's agenda that you would like for us to consider? Please come forward. Okay, I see none, then we'll move to the consent agenda. Our initial consent includes items 7 through 22, 25, 28, 30 through 33. It's been requested that we pull item 26 from the consent, so you can note that on your list. And also, I want to include in this initial consent, excuse me, item number 27 as being withdrawn by the applicant as part of that motion. So if I can get a motion for this modified consent, initial consent agenda.
Move for approval as amended.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, I'm going to pass the table over to Roger to deal with the secondary consent.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Question first. Did you include item 33 as part of the initial consent?
I sure did. My apologies. 33 should have been
Okay,
part of the
secondary.
secondary consent.
Okay. Okay, we have 3 items tonight on the agenda for secondary consent. Items 23, 24, and item 33. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I need to get a trap door so I can get out quicker. All right. If I'm counting right, we'll start with item number 26. The Carruthers Development Property Subdivision Final Plat. Okay.
Staff recommends approval with conditions.
I move for approval. I just have some comments that I want to make.
Okay.
I'll second.
Before we do that, let's, anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this item, including the applicant? And then we'll have discussion.
Good evening. My name is Adam Crump with Little John Engineering, here to represent the applicant if there are any questions or concerns.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Peterson?
And my comment is that I noticed that Lot 1 of this has received administrative approval, and my comment is that the Lot 2 here, which is not, you know, it's just other than just being on the plat tonight, it is the one that backs up to a number of homes in Breckenridge and at the And at an earlier time, whenever we looked at this, there was a great deal of concern about the people in Breckenridge and about, I don't remember whether it was specifically the buffer, or not. But anyway, I did want to make the people aware that Lot 1, great, no problem, it's perfectly fine and everything. But in Lot 2, there are some constraints there because it backs up to all of these residential acres. And also, as I remember, it's something about the topography there too that's going to make, a line of sight, and I don't remember whether it's up or down from these homes that back up in there. And these people really are not inside the city limits of Franklin, but a number of them did come and speak to us before, whenever this came up. As I say, I don't have a problem with it at all. I just want to say a little warning whenever the other things start to come in.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 29, the Highlands at Lad Park PUD subdivision pattern book revision 1, clarification of landscape standards and modification of design standards request for garage doors located north of Long Lane, south of Harpeth River, and east of Interstate 65 in Franklin, Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends approval of this pattern book revision, which includes a modification of design standards requests to allow garages to be consistent between the newer sections and the previously designed sections. Thank you.
All right, anyone in the audience wants to speak to this item? Is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Greg Gamble, representing the applicant Trillium Farms LLC, and just want to inform a little bit. I guess the when LAD was originally approved, it was under the old zoning ordinance. In 2009, obviously the zoning ordinance made quite a few changes. I appreciate staff working with us. We've been primarily Larry Mizell, as we're looking at those landscape requirements from the old ordinance, comparing them to the new ordinance, looking at what's different. The landscape portions that you see here is really to kind of clarify and inform the developers and builders who are already at LAD as to kind of bring LAD up to speed a little bit with under the new zoning ordinance. And happy to provide any clarification if I need to on the items that are listed here. Regarding Carruthers Parkway, these are additional requirements. We see an opportunity to provide landscape onto Carruthers Parkway, and so want to make sure that some direction is given as to how that landscape would be planted along Carruthers. Then the second part of this request is regarding the garage standards. Again, there are a lot of builders who have been building at LAD for some time who have homes that don't necessarily meet the same garage standards that the ordinance currently requires. Those are for homes that have side-loaded garages, those garages not facing a public right-of-way or public street, rear-facing garages, alley-accessed garages, and then detached garages that are in the rear of the lot. And what we're requesting there is that the maximum garage door width be increased to 16 feet as opposed to 9 feet. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion?
Are we need to talk about the modification of standards separately, though?
We do. We'll, if someone wants to bring a motion relative to the modification standard, we can do that.
Move for approval.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded as an amendment to the main motion for the modification standard. There's only one that I have seen, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, any discussion about the modification? Ms. Peterson?
I do appreciate the situation where a number of houses have already been built using the old standards, but whenever we approve these other modification of standards, was the width of the double, was it 16 feet? I thought it was different from that. I thought it was 18.
The only one that I've worked with so far has been Stream Valley, and I do not remember what the width was on those.
16 feet is not an unusual width for
I
a
know
double
that.
door.
I've looked, I've seen,
Yeah.
you know, but I was thinking that whenever we agreed to modification standards before, for some reason, I thought it was
18,
18.
I think it was.
So,
Can you pull two full-size vehicles in a garage with that door width and be able to open the doors?
We're fine with the maximum width of 18 feet, if that's more consistent with other modification standards that have been approved in the past.
Which is what we did, I believe.
If it keeps it consistent, I don't think we have a problem with that.
But two 9-foot doors with a foot in between causes problems.
That's correct, yes, that's correct. It's about the width or the additional width required for that garage that changes many of the floor plans that currently exist that are being sold today.
well, in fact, the zoning ordinance says 2 feet in between
2 feet in between
2
each
feet.
9-foot garage door.
Which would be 20, yeah.
the, so that would have to be a modification of standards too, even on the front, facing the front.
The implications of that has to do with the lots, the setbacks, the widths. You make the garages wider, and everything's, you know, for those that have been platted, it's just encumbering.
Staff, just to make sure I'm clear on this, if we approve this modification on a side-loaded house that faces a street like a corner lot, the front-facing requirement of 2 9-foot doors would still apply, is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct.
So on a, okay,
Right.
right, a side-loaded
Side-loaded that
that
faces
faces
the
the
street.
street.
As well as the 10-foot recess from the front
Right.
elevation.
Right,
Right.
right. So that would be for the 9-foot
still,
doors with the
right.
1-foot separation. It's not just facing it's facing any street,
Any
right?
street.
Okay, facing, maybe we should say facing any street. Okay.
And a freestanding garage, where does that, if that freestanding garage is 10-foot setback from the street and not connected to the house, would that mean it could be a 16 or 18-foot wide door?
Ooh,
Is that
that's a
a-
good
Is that
question.
a safe question? Or is there some other regulation that says it's got to be at the rear setback in order for that to be allowed? You understand what I'm asking?
It would be an accessory structure, so it would fall under the accessory structure requirements more so than the standard garage requirements. So it's kind of a separate review process through BNS.
I guess I'm asking if ultimately aesthetically our desire was to have 2 9-foot doors on a front-facing garage,
Yes.
could you float that garage and get by with not doing that?
If it wasn't visible from, some of this I'm guessing because VNS would review that rather than planning, since we wouldn't see that.
Right.
But if it was visible from the street, I think the intent would still be to provide the spacing, but if not, if it was still hidden by the main structure,
yeah.
that they could have the, you know, up to 16 or 18 or whatever was provided for.
And I understand your scenario, and it's not our intention to have garages facing the street with a 16-foot wide garage door.
Yeah, and I'm not implying that.
I know, but
Believe me, I'm
those
just-
instances
I'm
do
just
come
trying to figure out
I appreciate it.
what could happen, worst-case scenario.
Could I ask, do you have any homes that have a detached garage? I don't know.
We do not right now at LAD, but we're anticipating some in future sections that builders may bring that product in. So we want to make sure that we allow for that.
Well, okay, so maybe we just say garages that are facing any street shall have a maximum width of 9-foot garage doors with 1-foot separation.
That'd be fine.
And then all other garages, so on, have a maximum, have a minimum, have a maximum width of, I think, that would be 18 feet.
Based on our conversation, that would be 18 feet,
Okay,
that's correct.
okay, so I make the motion that we say garages facing any street shall have a maximum width of 9-foot doors with 1-foot separation. all other garages, and I won't read all that, shall have a maximum width of 18 feet.
Okay, I think we had a motion on the floor.
No, I'm making,
max.
I'm
Not
making,
maximum.
Are you amending the,
Minimum.
It has to be.
oh, it has to be,
Minimum.
okay,
It
we have a
has to be.
width, thank you.
Would have
Would have a width of
Set
18
width.
feet.
With, right.
Okay.
So I need to withdraw.
I was going to say, clarify for me rules of order here. She has a motion on the
I
floor.
need to
But I'm
withdraw.
going to amend that
So
motion.
amend the motion.
You want to amend
I'm gonna amend
that
that
motion?
motion.
Amend the amendment, okay.
Because is the motion for
Was
modification
16.
standards? It was just for modification standards, right?
That's correct.
Right.
That was for.
Okay,
It
so
was.
I would like to amend the modification of standards to say garages that are facing any street shall have a maximum width of 9-foot doors with 1-foot separation.
Not maximum.
No, minimum.
Oh.
It
has
have
to
a
be.
width.
Oh, hey,
A
width,
width.
oh, you said meant maximum on both of them, thank
I
you.
think it was with 2 feet.
I get it. I had taken out maximum on the last one, but I didn't get it on the first one. Okay. Garages
2 feet, isn't it?
facing any street shall have a width of 9-foot doors and 1-foot separation.
Isn't it
Okay, so far?
2 feet?
All other garages, front-loaded, no, side-loaded garages, rear-facing garages, alley access garages, and detached, oh, that says detached street-facing garages located in the rear of the, I'm gonna take out that street-facing garages located in the rear of the lot. Right.
May I explain that? Just, what we mean by that is the garage is detached at the back of the house would have a driveway that would go alongside the house. And so the garage actually faces toward the street, but it's at the back of the lot,
Behind the house.
behind the primary unit.
You can't see it.
I
So-
said, but if it's facing the street,
So it is facing the street, but it's at the back of the lot.
oh, you mean hidden by the, well, that's why I was asking.
Hidden by the primary unit.
That's why I was asking, are you planning for this? You know?
It's not a plan that we have right now, but some builders have
Well-
approached
Then
my
maybe
client with this
Maybe we
product.
clarify that it has to be behind the
Behind
main
the
unit.
behind the main
Okay, all
unit.
right, well, now somebody else is gonna have to help me on this one. All other garages, side-loaded garages, rear-facing garages, alley access garages, detached. What?
Not alley, not alley.
Alley
If they
access.
have alley in the future, I think we've allowed some 16-foot because of the narrow alley to be able to pull in.
That's the reason I think we were saying 18 though. I believe that was what we did before, and I may be wrong about that.
Looking back on the Stream Valley, we actually didn't, there wasn't a width listed, as far as we can tell. I do want to say, just, if I may,
Sure.
can I say just one quick, if you remove the maximum wording from this, there's possible scenario that if a garage is an inch or two less than that Building and Neighborhood Services may well, require them to change building plans just to get that. That's why we tend to include the maximum and then leave it
Yeah.
to the builder to determine, what's appropriate there. But that's completely up to you. I did want to add sort of a plug for keeping maximum.
No, that's a good point.
Yes.
That's
Oh,
good.
okay.
Leave
Oh,
18 foot as
This
maximum.
got to be a lot more complicated. Now,
Maximum.
let me ask you though, does that mean that you could have you could have a single car garage that does not have a 9-foot door?
Yes, in situations where they were not street facing, you could have up to an 18-foot garage.
No, I'm asking for for one car.
For
To
one
have a
car?
single door. Don't they have to be 9 feet? Can they be
You-
smaller than that?
You mean in terms of being able to use them?
Yeah.
We really have not gotten into the actual measures of garages. I would guess that most of them would be at least 9 feet if
It's a
they were
maximum
to be
9.
usable.
Yeah.
A standard one-car garage door is 8 feet wide. That would be, that's standard.
We have to
And
go
up
measure
can
ours
get 9
again.
foot.
Up to a maximum of 9, yeah.
9, yeah.
Okay,
Right, 8 to 9.
okay. Okay.
You want to give it a shot one more time?
Are we gonna try the maximum again, put in maximum again?
Maximum.
Yes.
Okay. Garages facing any street shall have a maximum width of 9-foot doors with 1-foot separation. all other garages, side-loaded garages, rear-facing garages, alley access garages, and detached street-facing garages located behind the residence,
Behind the
Yes.
residence.
behind the residence, shall have a maximum width of 18 feet.
Okay, sounds like a good motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We have the amendment to the amendment, the main motion. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so we revert back to the main motion. Any other discussion on the main motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
All right, item number 34, zoning ordinance text amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a text amendment that basically looks at transitional features where there are different kinds of uses or where there may be single-family up against multifamily. And what it is doing basically is codifying some of the things that we've already done as planning staff to look at how to transition from various neighborhoods in terms of massing and bulk. Emily Hunter has spent a lot of time working on this and has put together this package for your consideration tonight. And I would ask Emily to speak to some of the elements of this zoning amendment.
Basically, this amendment has two purposes. First is to change the applicability section to not just include traditional development areas, which is primarily the downtown area, but to also apply the transitional features to conventional areas. Right now in conventional areas, a buffer is sometimes required, a landscape buffer, if the lot sizes are 75% different from the existing lot sizes, but there are no transitional features actually required. So this would really allow for us as staff to recommend these transitional standards to be used in all those cases as well, if we see that they're necessary. That doesn't mean in every case that they would be applied, but it does allow us as staff to make those recommendations. It also sets up an appeals process similar to the design modification and the slope standards, where if an applicant disagrees with a staff interpretation or a staff decision regarding the transitional features, they can appeal that decision to Planning Commission as part of their site plan. The other purpose of this is really to clarify some of the standards to be a little more specific. So the standards include setbacks and how they relate to the structures adjacent and across the street, as well as the facade width and height. And then it even gets into where you have non-residential areas adjacent to residential, gets into off-site, gets onto off-street parking and loading service areas and things like that, and gives a little more guidance on how to locate those things. Staff recommends approval.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anybody in the audience that keeps up with these kind of things and stays up late at night wondering how are we going to deal with all these issues, wants to come up and talk about them? All right, seeing none, then I guess I will consider a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Peterson?
I really appreciate the changes for the most part. I do have a concern with one part of number one there, allow setbacks that were within 25% of the average setbacks for the existing uses on a block face, even when they are closer to the right-of-way. In some cases, and maybe in some areas, that could work, you know, but in some other places, that I don't want to just kind of see that as a permission there, whenever they are closer to the right-of-way. And actually, if you look back on what it says, if you're looking on this page that's numbered 4 there, on number 3 standards, right above the picture there. it says use setbacks that are within 25% of the average setbacks for existing uses on the same block face, provided no new use is closer to the right-of-way than any existing use. I think the idea there was just supposed to be, is not closer to the right-of-way than the closest use, the closest existing use, because otherwise you'd have to be back behind every one of them. And that's what they're saying no right here. But as I say, I don't want to do away with the fact that it might say no new use is closer to the right-of-way than the existing use closest to the right-of-way.
Okay.
Unless, and what were we saying? Unless it meets the
I can't remember
setback.
exactly.
Yeah, I know.
I did, do you want to pull it? I did draft up an example of one place where this might actually apply on Eddy Lane. And I think the way that you phrased, as long as it's not closer than a particular other use next to it, I think that would be fine in this case. It's kind of difficult to see, but this is a stretch of Liberty Pike between Eddy Lane and Ralston Lane. Right now, this is 2 lots off of Eddy Lane. There's an AT&T, I believe, building right next to it. And when you take the whole block face and do an average, you get that dark blue line as your minimum front setback, which is more than halfway back. But if you take 25% of that, you get the purple line that's just a little bit closer to Liberty Pike. It's actually about 30 feet closer. But one thing, if we actually take it, provided that no building is set back less than the next closest building, then it would actually be permitted to be about 80 feet back. So it would be consistent with the adjacent AT&T building. So I think as long as we change the way that's worded, that it's no closer than the closest
No closer than
building,
the closest.
I think that would work fine as well.
I'm not sure now exactly. Okay, on number 3 parentheses, A parentheses, in place of the blocked out, provided no new use is closer to the right-of-way than the closest existing use.
Closest existing. Principal structure.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I don't know what that means, but. I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say is I do not know what the effect would be. That sounds okay. Okay, so I guess I
Okay, is that an amendment?
make that as an amendment.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second? You almost co-authored it.
Yes, thank you.
All right, there's a proper motion and a second. This is the amendment to the main motion. Any other comments? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Back to the main motion.
And I want to just say something about number 2. I don't necessarily disagree with this, but I noticed that it says new structures can exceed facades of adjacent and on the opposing side of the street by 25% and so on, you know. But I had a question about the part, this can be accomplished through strategic building design that makes a larger building appear to be a series of smaller buildings. So can we get some examples or something like that?
Yes, we actually have some
Thank
here.
you.
So we just have them in the PowerPoint. It's called. Just give us one moment
I mean,
to
I
pull
think
them
of
up.
the bigger building and smaller building being like a big apartment or something like that, where you've got the,
It's
you
in
know,
the meeting
kind of
slides.
Okay, ins and
kind of
outs.
getting you back and forth and everything.
Yeah.
But
Something.
this just sounded, I mean, for some, other than something like that, I don't know. Maybe you can give some example.
Well, I was just also wondering how this applies to the water lines that are provided by other than Franklin. when they require, like Millcroft requires us to have 15 foot outside the right of way. And so is that going to affect any of these modifications?
That is a good question. I don't know.
Easement
Those are
would
kind of
go.
separate site issues. We
Right.
wouldn't consider that as part of the transitional part of it.
Because in your example, at 5.4, it shows that average setback. Would you run up at, would you run into a problem there?
You talking about where you might be building a structure on top of an existing utility?
Yeah.
Now, see, that,
The easement would take
Yeah,
care
it
of
would.
that.
that might also be a good reason to say that they can't be closer.
The only thing that I would say about those water utility easements, all of the other structures would have to abide by the
That's right,
same
so it would-
Right.
that
width,
would
so
take care
it
of that.
really wouldn't end up applying to this because all of their neighbors are gonna be pushed back because of that too, so.
And I think also we're saying this would allow it, it's not saying that it has to be.
Okay.
Right.
You know, it allows for the possibility.
So these are some sorry.
I was gonna say, it doesn't matter what the setback would be, the easement's always gonna go.
Exactly.
Sure.
Right.
These are just some examples we kind of pulled quickly, but these are some residential examples where it is one structure that might be bigger than a house across the street from it or something of that nature, but what we would perceive as the facade width is kind of where the red arrows go, where that red line is. So that's the intent of this. So, I mean, it can be really limiting to be with only in 25% of the actual width and height. I don't know that many of the buildings, especially in non-residential areas, would comply with that, especially the ones that we see come in Cool Springs.
Now, was that a part, could I ask, was that a part of something that was already in here? I didn't,
There was, part of that was already in here. It's just that it was to ensure that the width and height on facades of structures on opposing sides of the street are consistent with each other, so that neither facade exceeds each other's dimensions by more than 25%. But this only applied in traditional areas where the
Okay.
pattern is very established.
Gotcha.
When we're talking about conventional areas, you don't see time after time the same type of construction.
yeah. In conventional areas, I can't see that would be a problem to exceed the width across the street at all in commercial.
And we've got other regulations that address
That address
breaking
that.
that building up so it's not one long building as well, so.
Yeah.
Like at Jameson Station and Bale, I know the established setbacks were probably further back, so did we allow that as part of the development process?
It was part of the PUD approval, yeah. So in those types of cases, these transitional features, staff might encourage them, but ultimately with the PUD, it goes before Planning Commission and BOMA to make those modifications anyways. So they actually have the flexibility to do some different things other than what we might require with the preliminary plat or site plan.
I do want to say that since those things have been approved, I have become much more aware of potential widening of roads. I would really have a much harder time now thinking about the idea that, whenever this ordinance was formulated, that a lot of things ought to be brought up to the street. Because I have already seen that if you bring them up to the street, you're probably not going to widen some roads that need to be widened. I mean, we've seen that out on Carruthers of all places, where we already have wide roads. So I really have a concern now about what I think was an idea at the time the ordinance was written about pulling things up to the street. In some places, it could be perfectly appropriate, but I do not want to encourage that anymore. You know, if it's something that's going to be a development where, you know, roads are going to just serve the development themselves. But honestly, anything that serves more than just the development, I really do not want to see for the street, just because I realize if you do that, you are not going to widen that road unless you spend a lot of money to tear down things.
Well,
You know,
go ahead, I'm sorry,
I was gonna
Alma.
say, I go by the road, by the Bale every day, and I mean, I'm just amazed that I don't see a difference in traffic, and I've seen one car come out of that apartment complex since they've been there. And the way it's built up to the street, there's actually less, you see a lot of, less of what's actually going on, by everything being so close up on the street, because once you're in there, you're in there. You're within the development itself. But I have not seen any increased traffic, or I just can't tell that that apartment complex is there except to go by there every day. One car. So
Well, there's probably a lot of increased traffic on Liberty Pike just because of all the terrible things that have been going on 96 East, for those of you who actually have to travel out that way. Liberty Pike has become a lot more traveled by me.
yeah, for that
And
reason.
by the
yeah.
way, Liberty Pike is going to be closed. The Liberty Pike entrances or crossing of Matt Catcher is going to be closed starting 7 a.m. Saturday and going to 7 p.m. Sunday. So, please.
I know this is not part of our meeting, but
I know.
someone asked when that would be completed. Does anyone know when they completed?
A year from now.
Of Liberty Pike?
No, no,
I mean,
oh, no,
the
I mean,
the Matt Catcher.
the Matt Catcher.
That they're paving, that they're about to pave.
Well, see, this is way beyond, but what's going to happen is they're going to switch everybody over to the new 2 lanes. And then they're going to do the other 2 lanes. Yeah, Carl will tell us a lot more than I know.
I'm just thinking, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, we're gone far
Do
afield.
it.
I'm just thinking,
Wait to
before
vote on
you
this.
say something, Carl, maybe before we forget what we've made a
Yeah,
motion
that's
on,
right.
let's finish this motion, and
Yeah, because there would be no change, I mean, from,
then we can talk about this right after the
Yeah.
motion. So, is there any other discussion on the motion? If everybody remembers what motion we're on? All right, we're approving then the main motion, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, Carl, you're on.
tell us.
The TDOT project managers have approached the city about expediting the reconstruction of Matt Catcher and Liberty Pike. The critical issue is the vertical elevation difference. And in discussion among staff with the TDOT project managers, we've identified that by doing a total intersection closure for a short 2-day period, primarily during a weekend, that it can just minimize a whole lot of other congestion and complications that would last for several weeks more if it was done just piecemeal. So, yeah, that is the plan for Liberty and Matt Catcher.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And we'll post detours and publicize it, as you mentioned already.
All right, any other discussions? Catherine, I was just thinking, do you want to talk at all about the, speaking of Liberty and all the crazy construction, about the planning? Is there anything about the planning part of that lower area near the Harpeth?
Oh, yes. We have heard back from the people who will be doing the presentations, who will be our experts coming in. They will be in the week of the 16th of September. Everybody will be invited to join that discussion with them. There'll be a number of focus groups coming in, and Plan Commission will be one of those focus groups. That they'll be talking about what's the future of that FFO around Fifth Avenue and the downtown area, and looking at a number of different options possibly. We do have somebody who's a historian coming in. We have somebody who's in economic development. We have an expert in floodway fringe area development. and we have an overall flood manager. All of them will be coming to Franklin. They'll be here about a week, and hopefully we'll have a resulted report at the end of that week. So we're looking forward to that on September 16th that week, and we will be sending everyone invitations and lots of correspondence as we get closer.
Great. And we have some leftover pizza for the night as well.
Not from tonight, I don't.
All right, great. Any other comments? All right, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.